there's a sense of time and place that makes a quote unquote normal image look utterly intriguing. People are always like, well, you have to be in a cool place or you have to have a cool camera. I don't know if that's true. I think it's just the places and the people that you surround yourself with, the ability to just try.
Hello again, and welcome to F22 again, where we bring all things photography into focus. Today, I am super privileged to bring you my dear friend, VSCO co-founder, and importantly for the show, amazing street photographer, Greg Lutze. Welcome, Greg, to the show.
Thank you, Zach. It's good to be on here. I'm glad we can chop it up a little bit.
Yes, and you are also going to be co-hosting a lot of these episodes, either with me or separately, so people will see a lot more of your face as well. So get used to Greg.
Yeah, thank you.
So just to kind of kick it off, I want to help people understand who you are, your history, what leads us here, especially like your story in photography.
Yeah. Honestly, my story probably starts even pre-photography. I was much more in the world of design, graphic design, art direction, creative direction. That's what I always loved. Even as a kid, I would always be drawing like logos for sports teams. And I remember I think I was in kindergarten, and I had done this coloring book that from school, and I'd done it so perfectly. Everything was like really nice. And I remember my mom said like, oh, this is great, but did you know if you want to, you can color outside the lines? And that just blew my mind as a 5-year-old, that you can essentially be creative. And so that really opened up my world to everything. And so I really was interested in illustration, design, music, but photography really started hitting probably when I was in, I guess, high school, and I was in a band and we needed band pics. And so I had I don't even know what it was. I wish I knew what it was. Whatever my mom and dad had at the time, some point and shoot film camera. And I took photos of our band, and that was probably the first time that I really was like, oh, this is pretty cool. But I would have never considered myself a photographer by any means. Fast forward later, and this is where I met you in Seattle, you working at a record studio and me doing graphic design for bands. That's when I really started being like, oh, I like this photography. We would need to, for the album covers, we would just shoot various objects. Say it was a hand that was, the band wanted a hand holding a world in it. We'd shoot at that hand with like a Nerf ball in it, and then we'd Photoshop it in, or else actually just the band or the artist itself. And so that was, for me, I was like, oh, this is something that I really enjoy doing. Yeah. And I was surrounded, you and I were both trying to make it in the music industry, so there's no shortage of cool people, or at least interesting people to photograph.
Yeah. Hold on. I want to camp out here for just a second, because our stories are so intertwined, and we just got to get into this a little bit. So I was doing music. I was a music producer, like straight out of high school. And I think we were both like interns and assistants at the same time, met each other that way. And my story is that like music had always been my hobby, and I would get to the end of these long days, doing music, and the last thing I wanted to do was music again when I got home, but I didn't have any other hobbies. Right. And I had to figure out like, well, what else do people do? And I was around you, and like you said, many others, and you were getting into photography, and that seemed really fun, really interesting. And so I just kind of thought, well, I'll give that a try. And like literally that is my start of photography 20 years ago, is largely you and Jared and some others like inspiring me.
Yeah,
so
we have. I think we both have a lot to owe to Jared. Jared Knudsen is his name. Yes. In Seattle, he just introduced us to a whole another world of photography. I was into photography before, but he was way into it and introduced me to like William Eggleston and Stephen Shore and all these photographers that now are like, I just love. They're my absolute favorite. So I think there's something to be said about surrounding yourself with other creatives. It was, to be fair, gnarly. At one point, I think we had 8 of us in a 1-bedroom. Zach was actually my bunk bed mate, not just my roommate, my bunk bed mate.
Yes. So it's pretty. We shared an IKEA bunk bed. The days of small things.
And ate a lot of Taco Bell tacos, 2 for $1.
Yes. Wasn't sure if you're going to go there. I didn't want to start, but yeah. So fun.
But
Yeah.
in retrospect, at that time, even purely through the lens of photography, at that time, I didn't really know what I was doing with the camera. I'll look back on my images and the composition is off, the exposure is almost always off. Good thing for RAW. But in retrospect, I look back and I think because our life was so interesting and we were surrounded by such interesting people and doing lots of things, I would say fundamentally my images are more interesting. They're not technically good, but I look back at that time, I'm like, oh, wow, that was cool. And there's so much, people are always like, well, you have to be in a cool place or you have to have a cool camera. I don't know if that's true. I think it's just the places and the people that you surround yourself with and the ability to just try, to not have any fear. I didn't know better. Now I I'm out doing street and I'm like, well, do I have, my hyperfocal distance on right? And like, is this person going to know, all these things. Whereas back in the day, I was like, who cares? Just shoot. And I want to recapture some of that courage, spirit today.
Yeah, I've heard that sentiment a lot, that people look back on some of their early photos when they just put the camera on like the green square, the P mode or whatever. Yeah. And they almost see something that they feel like they've lost now that they're much more accomplished in that just raw interest in their eye and stuff. And it can take years to get back there. I think we've both experienced that.
I wonder if sometimes too it's just pure nostalgia, because for instance, like let's take Fred Herzog's images, one of my top all favorite photographers.
Same.
And if you look at them, probably at that time when he looked at them, he was probably just like, it's just everyday life. It's just a man in a suit standing next to his car. And he's not wrong, but we look back at it 40, 50 years later now, and we're like, whoa, look at that guy. Just like, his swag is incredible. And like, man, that car, they don't make them like they used to. But there's a sense of time and place that makes a quote unquote normal image look utterly intriguing. And you just want to like look at it. I think that's powerful.
Yeah, it's so hard to see that in your own life now, what they must have been seeing. Because we see it as so interesting and
I am starting to see that now, though.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I'm starting to see that now in my images, because it's like at this point I've done photography for about with strong intent for about 25 years, and it's just enough now that you'll look back and be like, oh, wow, those jeans are kind of funny, or like just kind of different. You start noticing those things that give it that like date stamp on it almost. I think it's fascinating.
When you look back at your own early work, do you see threads of like things that you now recognize as being signature to yourself? Like, do you see your own style, or has it really changed?
Yeah, no, surprisingly, I don't think it's changed as much as I thought. I think, well, let me rephrase that. There's the things that I have done for more commercial work, like portraits and studio lighting, which are a little more technical. Yeah. And from that standpoint, I've improved greatly, just understanding how to use flash, how to use lighting. From a street or more documentary point of view, I actually find that I'm the same, almost the exact same person I was from that time period. I'm drawn to things like corners. I'm drawn to things like trash. I'm drawn to things like grit. I'm drawn to things, the people that are not necessarily beautiful, but are interesting to me. I do find myself photographing the same things. And when I look back through my archive, I'm like, man, I shot a lot of corners, or I've shot a lot of bathrooms. Like, why do I shoot, gas station bathrooms? I don't actually know, other than I find them kind of interesting, and it feels like there's a story there with all the graffiti and obscene little notes and what have you, and poor lighting. There's something fascinating about that.
Yeah, I've noticed the same thing. It's like you can improve what you are in many ways, but there's like something that's just kind of there that you sort of discover in your own life over time. It's really interesting. Okay, so we were both interns, assistants, early in our careers in Seattle, sharing a bunk bed. Take us further on in the history from there.
I was at a place called Asterisk Studio designing, and we did. They're now Invisible Creature. Incredible guys. They do amazing work. Amazing. I owe them so much. But I was working there at the time, and this is like in the era of Flash which, man, probably people don't even know. It was a way of animating websites. And I had done a website for a band called Jimmy Eat World. I love the band. I guess you'd probably file them under like emo pop or indie pop, something of that category. But at the bottom, we had put like powered by Asterisk Studio, which was what I was working at. And then this guy named Joel Flory, who I didn't know at the time, was like, man, I love Jimmy Eat World and I love the site that you did. Would you create branding and a website for my dad's construction company? And we were like, oh, we don't really do that. We're like doing bands and some skateboard, snowboard type of stuff, but we're not like really into the construction or architect stuff. But he was like, well, we want it to look like Dwell magazine, and I love a really like minimal architectural aesthetic. So we're like, okay, sure, let's go for it. And so we did that, and I just always stayed in touch with Joel, which was pretty rare for most of our clients being like bands and stuff. You kind of stayed in touch, but Joel actually became a real friend. And I think at the time, there's a few different things going on. You and I were like really getting into photography. I was having these conversations with Joel about like, what does it mean to be someone who's creative, whether it be a designer or a photographer? Like, are there companies that are really out there that will really stand by the creative class, like really show up for them, do whatever it takes to help them make it? And so we just started having these conversations around that. Also at the time too, this was circa 2010, you were seeing a lot of film being killed off. Like Kodak and Elfer were like, this doesn't make sense. Everything is moving to digital. Everything is going to be moving to mobile. We kind of all saw that writing on the wall. And so we were just starting to have these conversations around like, man, actual film is incredible. And what if it goes away? And there was no shortage of companies out there that are like, no, this is actually, the exact film thing. But it was very apparent it was not a good emulation whatsoever. They just weren't accurate. It was like a general estimation of what film might look on digital, and it wasn't really working. And so you and I started having these conversations, and Joel, around like, well, could we digitally recreate these film stocks to emulate them almost as a love letter to the next generation, and selfishly like so we could continue to use them as well. And that's when these conversations around VSCO started coming up, and we launched our first set of filters, presets, whatever you want to call them, for Lightroom and Aperture, which obviously you played a massive role behind, so you know well about. And it really took off. People really were like, wow, this is incredible. Not only do my photos look amazing, the workflow is way faster. We would hear these stories of wedding photographers that are like, it normally takes me 8 hours to cull and edit, and now it's down to 3 or 4. And so it was really clear we were adding value to the photographers at the time. And so credit to you. I mean, like what you've created is just really something that I think for this generation has really helped define what does film aesthetic look like in a digital age.
Thank you. It's been a huge honor and pleasure to do that. I want to back up a little bit. I feel like we're almost having a When Harry Met Sally kind of moment as the company gets older. Like we all have our origin stories. So what I remember is you would constantly come to me with like these ideas of like, let's do this, let's do that. And it was like music or design or photography. There's like always something. Like you're just an ideas guy. And they were always amazing. And we did some awesome projects together. So my memory is one of those many conversations was you saying like, hey, what if we made Photoshop actions and I could make some WordPress templates and we could sell that for like nonprofit and it would promote both of our businesses. And I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds cool. And then pretty soon this guy Joel was involved, and then there was like all these huge photographers that we were talking to in a workshop. And then we started talking about film, and I had been messing around with this profile creation thing, and it kind of all led to VSCO Film. But that was, at least from my experience, that was how it happened for me. Does that line up for you?
Yeah, no, that seems about right. I mean, it's all a little fuzzy back in the day, but yeah, I was always trying to get Zach to do cool stuff with me. because he has always been the more technical, even whether we used to be in a couple bands together, and like I have all kinds of like song ideas or like, hey, it's generally this vibe, but Zach is the guy that can play all the instruments and make it sound good.
Or look at them on my wall now. But yeah, that's always been, I think, the beauty of our friendship and our kind of partnership is that, and this is just something that I've learned about myself over time, is that I'm not somebody that's like just overflowing with ideas and I have to make all these things. I'm very creative. I love making things, but I'm happy to just read a book and hang out with my family too. And
Yeah.
but I'm very driven, and so I've found myself partnering with people like you who have these amazing ideas and can make things happen and bring everything together, but they need somebody to kind of help make it happen and bring it to life. And I love that role, and I've really kind of discovered in my life, like, that's kind of what I am, and I actually love that. But it took a while to acknowledge that and accept that. But it's been amazing, and I love it, and I love working with people like you. We've done some amazing things together.
Everything done well I think it's largely done in a collaborative nature. Like, I mean, if I think about some of my favorite designers or creatives, like Virgil Abloh, for instance, like he gets a lot of credit as an individual, but he was always working and collaborating. Or if you've seen the new Pharrell documentary with Lego, like it's all about collaboration. And I think, that's how the best things happen, is working with other people with different perspectives and skill sets than you. Interesting things happen. VSCO would have never happened if it was just an idea, right? Like everyone always is like, and they're asking me for advice or whatever. Like I hear the phrase like, if I just had a good idea to start a business, and I'm like, well, you do need a good idea, but really so much of making something is the actual hard work to bring it to life, right? Everybody has some ideas, and whether they're good or bad is who's to say. That's somewhat subjective, but the hard thing is actually doing that thing.
Right. Well, and it's not like emulating film was like some novel idea. It's not like that had never been done before, but we did a good job at it. And same thing with a phone app, like there was other phone apps at the time, but we did our own version of it. And, you don't have to have this like brand new, I think we have these sort of popular myths of the like creative genius that just sort of has this lightning strike and suddenly they make something. And that, I guess there might be a couple examples in history of that happening, but so much more often it's what you're talking about. It's collaboration, it's community, it's combinations of things, and one person has this and one person has that, and you see this in music all the time. And just this notion of like, I have to have this idea and I have to personally all by myself make all this happen. It's just it's a falsity that I think we need to move on from as creatives and embrace. So history of VSCO, I won't get into all that, but we made the presets. Greg and I have been working together in many, many ways over the course of, what's it been? I guess we're on 15 years now. And we made the phone app. We've made lots of presets. Greg and I have worked on lots of presets together, but we've never made one that was like exactly what you wanted, right?
Yeah.
I think M5 came from some mood boards that you had made early on. I remember you making lots of mood boards when we were making all those first presets. But we've talked about making, wishing that you could make your own preset for a long time.
Right.
And now we're finally doing it. Maybe explain to people how this came about and your vision for the look and just your own kind of style of photography, and help people understand the story of this preset.
I like all forms of photography, but the one that I love the most is street. I love street photography, and I love going out and feeding on the energy and observing things. I do think street photography is an interesting place now because I think some people find it either, maybe not, cringy is not the right word. Like, I think some people find it very threatening, the idea of taking a photo of someone unawares. But I love it because it is a snapshot of life and humanity as it really is. So much of what we have these days as you're scrolling on social media is perfect and polished. And I love, almost from a historical sense of this is what life looked like for this time. I went to a street photography workshop, and the critique that I got back, and it was done in a negative way, was your photos or your images look like snapshots that you want to show to your friends to show them you went to a place. And at first I was like, oh dang, that hits hard. Like, man, bummer. But the more I think about it, that's actually exactly what I want to do. I don't care about if everybody sees my work. I just want to show my friends. Yeah. And I do want them to be snapshots or images of that time and place to capture that. I think there's something very powerful about historical memory that can be created as it actually was, especially in this day of AI, especially in this day of everything perfectly Photoshop brush, especially in this day and age of studio lighting. And I'm not bummed about any of that, but for me, I want things that feel real, and I want things that feel a little gritty, and I want human interaction. To me, that feels musical almost. And so as we were thinking about the preset, I've just been intrigued by the idea of like, could we make essentially a modern classic in terms of a preset for street photographers? And as we mentioned before, you two, William Eggleston, Joel Meyerowitz, like Gary Winogrand, all these amazing photographers that almost by today's standard, if you put them on the like social media influencer scale, would be considered boring. But when I look at their work, I'm just like, this is incredible. This is where I want to go. This is my North Star. And so the preset, I was hoping to capture something that isn't too much per se, but more like a frame for an image, something that complements the image that you have already created. That's essentially what we tried to create, is something that combined maybe like a VSCO preset A4 or M5, a little bit of reddish, a little bit of browns, with something that's inspired by what I would consider classic film stock, like a Kodachrome. And so that was the concept, and I love the results. I think street photographers are going to love it, but I also would say that anybody who wants to capture something that feels slightly nostalgic but not over the top are really going to like the preset. And so props to you for collaborating with me and making this happen, Zach.
Yeah, well, it was really fun. I mean, I remember looking at the mood board that you made, a lot of film, some of those classic photographers that you mentioned. Kodachrome always comes up in these conversations. It was just such an iconic part of that look and that era. But I remember looking into like some of the films that William Eggleston shot, and he actually himself has said that he would shoot, negative film, but pushed a couple stops over sometimes to get a more saturated look. So yeah, I went kind of digging into the work that we've done in the past with film, and like you said, some of those kind of warmer presets like M5 and A4 that definitely have like a long lasting resonance. Just trying to figure out, what is that, and how can we kind of piece that together. And you and I went back a few times on different iterations. You had a trip to Paris and tried, like I think at that workshop that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Came back with a lot of feedback after you ran some of your real images through it. It was really cool. So these presets will be out at the time of this release. People will have this. So this is going to be We 9. We the Creators, number 9. So if you're in the app, you scroll to the We presets. I think they're black with a white label. And We 9 is inspired by Greg Lutze.
It's very complimentary for, I think, quiet moments, or, in like music, I use this reference all the time. There's some albums that you listen to that's a first time listen, and it's just poppy, it's ear candy, it grabs you right away. But honestly, after a couple months, you kind of like forget about it. You're just like, oh, that's good. But some of my favorite albums are actually, I would call them 3 listens. That the first time you listen to them, you're like, okay, Second time you start picking up things, you're like, oh, that's cool. And then by the 3rd listen, you're like, this is my favorite album ever. And I was even thinking, Actually, this is a throwback because you worked with him as an artist. Father John Misty, aka Josh
Oh yeah.
Tillman, aka J. Period Tillman. I was in Seattle back in the day. Zach recorded some of his work.
Well, hang on.
The
That's
song.
that's a pretty big overstatement. He had already recorded some things. This is like
Okay.
2003, maybe,
Okay.
on a 4-track tape recorder, and he needed somebody to help him convert it into Pro Tools and mix it and
Okay.
like finalize it.
There we go.
So
Okay.
that's
I
what
knew
I
there was
did.
a connection at some point.
It was all him. Yeah, it was like in the bedroom of the people who I was staying with at the time. So small thing, but I did get to work with
I
him,
love
which
it.
was amazing.
My hope is my work over time stands the test of time. When I look at a lot of my design work that I did 20, 25 years ago for rap metal bands and gangster rap, I would never show them in my portfolio. They don't stand the test of time. The typography is terrible. The visuals are very on trend to that time era. And so maybe we'll look back at one day and be like, have a good laugh. But they're nothing that for me has stood the test of time. Whereas I hope my images that I create, the photographs that I make, I hope that they can be those 3-song listens that just stand the test of time. Um,
Wow.
that's probably everyone's wish, right? To have something that
Yeah.
um, I think is a classic, but that's my hope.
Well, and I love going back to what you're saying about wanting to show your work to your friends. Like a 3-song or a 3-listen song is not something that is going to top the charts, probably, or at
Nope.
least not
You
for
won't
a
hear it
long
on that
time.
top 40. Yeah.
Yeah, but then for that small group that connects with it, it matters so much more.
Yeah.
And it feels like that's kind of what you're saying, is that you would rather go really deep with fewer people than
Yeah.
hit a high number that doesn't stick with a lot of people. And I love that. But I think you should all try this preset. Maybe give it a three photo try.
A 3 photo try.
So I'm looking at this now. There's 2 versions of it. There's the just the normal We9, and then there's the We9 Pro. And these Pro presets are a really interesting challenge, because it's almost like building 3 or 4 presets, because each of the sliders do things, and you have to design what each of those do and make it all work together. So we went back and forth on this a lot. So as I recall, I'm looking at it now. So tone boosts this kind of warmth in the highlights, and especially in the warm tones. It really kind of warms everything up in a beautiful way. And then to the negative, it kind of does the opposite. It cools things down in case it's too warm. I really liked that. And then the contrast is really just a nice way to kind of balance out, whether the highlights and shadows are kind of getting too crazy. I think a lot of people go straight to the strength slider, but we build these things at full strength to try to make them work. And sometimes you can keep the intensity and the power of the look, but just reduce the contrast with that pro version. Yeah, and then for the color slider, it's kind of boosting the color, but in a very natural, very kind of nostalgic, vintage film inspired way that doesn't overpower the image, but it definitely gives it a boost. But then I also really loved the look of the reduction in contrast or of color. You can kind of pair that with the other two and get a little bit more of a muted look without totally losing all the color and that warmth. So I really love kind of the range of this one with those extra controls, and I'm so curious to see how people use it, and the others too. This is what is it, 5? It's a group of 5 presets with a bunch of creators from all over the world. I think we have Japan, Brazil, a couple across the US, Greg. So really, really stoked to see how everybody uses this, and I'm delighted that you were able to be a part of it, Greg. It's been
Thank you.
so cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I am so thankful to be part of this photographic community, and I am every day I am just stunned at the work that people are creating and the perspectives that they have. We essentially are all shooting through a couple pieces of glass and algorithms that make it look a certain way, right? And yet what people create is so different and so unique, both of how they view the world and how they're editing and processing it. It's so inspiring to me. So I'm really happy to be a part of it, and I hope people enjoy playing with the preset that you and I collaborated on, Zach. I think especially people that love film and have shot with film will find something very cool about it, in that it gives the opportunity to, film doesn't always react how we exactly want it to be. Sometimes it is a little cooler, sometimes it is a little warmer, and I think this preset gives the range of that for people who are wanting to shoot particularly street or documentary style, or maybe quiet moment style, if you will. I think so many times people just don't let them have it. They always like, oh, I'm not this, I'm not that, I can't do that. And just, man, just try stuff. Even if you're terrible at it, the more you do it, the better you'll get. And it's just, more than that, it's just fun. I just think it's fun.
I'm actually curious, you mentioned how you've been doing photography for 25 years almost. And I'm just curious, like, what you would say to somebody that's just getting started, kind of like words of wisdom to impart, or what would you have told yourself, as another way to phrase this, when you were first getting started, that you know now that you wish you knew then?
I'm entirely unprepared to answer this, actually. But I would guess I would say something about, to the effect of, like, in this day and age, if you do something good in art, people will say, like, hey, you should sell this, or hey, you could do this as a career. And I think there's value in that. They're trying to communicate to you what you do is good. And for some people, especially people that are listening to this, I would say go all in and try to make a career out of whatever that creative pursuit is. I would also say, and this is something that I'm learning now, like 10, 15, 25 years later, sometimes just making your art, because you can make your art, and sometimes it's sharing it, and sometimes it's not even sharing it, is just a wonderful thing in and of itself. I guess the idea of art for art's sake, and maybe you'll make money off it, maybe you're not, but I wouldn't let that steal or take away any joy of just being able to do it. Just being able to pick up a camera and document your life is a wonderful thing. And so I think so long I always equated my success and my worth as a creative with, is this making money? And sometimes it does. Awesome. But it doesn't always have to do that. And so my hope is to take pressure off of people to have their creative photography journey look a certain way, to look like that influencer that you see on social media, to look like that big name photographer that is selling that workshop that you want to take, whatever it is, right? Your journey will be different, and that can look in a lot of different ways. And if it's just to take photos, because taking photos is awesome, just, I hope you love that, and I hope you celebrate that and enjoy that. I'm finding that after all these years, I just love taking photos. And it's such a joy. When I watch a Joel Meyerowitz documentary, he's like, I think pushing 90, and this guy loves photography. And I'm like, that's goals. That's goals. Right? He doesn't talk one iota around how much money he's made when he's talking about any of his interviews. He talks about the projects he worked on, or the people he saw, or the moments that he caught. And to me, that is at the heart of it. What photography is about is just creating, making things. So that's what I would tell myself. Just have fun. Just take photos.
Oh, I love that. And honestly, when I ask people this question, so often the answer is something along those lines. Like, I would go easy on myself. I would just try to enjoy the journey, et cetera, et cetera. And I love that. I think it's the Masters of Photography, the Joel Meyerowitz kind of course. Even outside of what he's saying, it's just so inspiring to see somebody with so much longevity and yet still just so delighted and enraptured in the creative process. And I feel like
delight is a great word.
Yeah. And curiosity, like, that's what drives so much of, I think, creative success, is just curiosity and delight and following that. And it's hard to make a career of that. It's very trying. We've both experienced the ups and downs of that.
Right.
I'm going to wrap us up here. I could I mean, we do. We could talk all day, but I always love talking with you, hanging out with you, Greg.
Same.
If people want to see more of your work, you can just go to VSCO.co/Greg, Greg. Amazing work, amazing creative person, and a wonderful preset. So check out the We the Creators presets. Greg is We9, but there's 11 of these things now, and some, I think 5 new ones that are really, really, really cool. They all have their own wonderful stories that are really worth taking a look at. So hope you check those out, and we will see you all next time. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Greg, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.